Ink up. Slow down. Write your rhythm with Script and Scribe.
Hey friends, welcome back to Script and Scribe. I'm Kat, and today we're looking at 5 purple fountain pens and trying out 4 bold inks. And why 4 rather than 5 inks? Well, this 90 or 80p pen comes with a standard cartridge. We'll leave that one for last. We'll dive into the more interesting ones. First up, we'll try the Jane Eyre ink from Wearingeul with this Sailor Pro Gear Slim Dusk, which was a limited edition for cult pens. I love that color, that sort of mauve with a 14 karat gold trim and nib. Now I've already filled the pen with this Jane Eyre ink, and I feel like they really pair up well. This is an extra fine nib, and I've seen a lot of people say that Jane Eyre actually isn't the best in extra fine nibs, but this particular one handles it beautifully. I usually find that this color shifts between a dusty lavender grey and think, like the moorland in Jane Eyre or even in Wuthering Heights. So definitely very Bronte-like in the north of England. And there's no sheen, no shimmer, just this quiet shading, which provides its own sort of intensity. I feel like this is the perfect ink for sort of like mood journaling. In a medium, I think that the shading is going to show a lot more. And certainly will. I think I overloaded that, but it will dry up nicely. And this sample shows that the extra fine nib from Sailor has no problems with this ink, unlike what other people's experience of using Jane Eyre in extra fine nibs has been. Next up, we're going to stick with Wearingeul for the ink, and this time it's a Taxidermist Genius. And I'm going to pair this up with Wancai to Starry Purple. So this is a very compact pen, but you can see that the cap screws on nicely to post it, so that's all secure and really lengthens the pen. It's an eyedropper, so you fill it into the body. The Taxidermist Genius is a purpley, well, as you can tell, we're doing purple inks, but it is a wine violet purple. So I'll pop that there. And this does have sheening properties, unlike this Jane Eyre one. It's supposed to have green, and hopefully that will come out on this endless paper. You can definitely see that it's far more wine than the mauve grey over here. So that's cool, and this has got a more warm tone to it. And now we'll check out the performance. It's an extra fine nib. This is obviously a steel nib. I feel like there's really good dramatic, surreal, gothic energy over here. So they both feel like older inks. I don't know how to describe that other than they don't have that vibrancy of newer inks, and I like that. So I enjoy Wearingeul inks because in a lot of cases they have the muted tones. Of course you can go for the bright ones, but they have a great collection of muted. And it's the Starry Purple. Again, no skipping. And this feels a little bit juicier than the Jane Eyre for being in an extra fine nib. I find that the obviously the Sailor is slightly narrower than the Wancai, but not much. They're very similar, which I don't always find. I usually find the Japanese nibs to be the most extra fine. So this is pretty close. You can see that this is more saturated than the Jane Eyre, so Taxidermist Genius does have more saturation. And yeah, perfect pair again. Let me know if you've got a better pairing for either of these pens. Next up, we have the Jinhao Bluish Violet ink, and we're going to be pairing that with the Jinhao 159, again in a bluish violet color. And since this isn't an eyedropper and I've got it all in a cartridge, I'm going to save myself a little bit of time, and we're going to get the sample out of the nib for this one. And I'll just, yeah, I think that's more than enough. This is really vibrant in comparison to the other two more muted ones, but it definitely has a cooler leaning again. And I really like this color. I'm not going to bother posting because it's not a terribly heavy pen for being a metal body, but I don't need the pen cap on there, and I don't find it is posting secure, but it doesn't feel correctly balanced once I actually post it. You might feel differently, but the balance feels a lot better for me uncapped in this instance. So this here is a fine nib rather than extra fine. And you can see how juicy that is. I didn't have that bit of pooling in any of those. And I don't mind it. It's probably also because I used the nib to do the sample. So we won't judge the O over there for being extra juicy. That could just be down to me. I think this bluish violet is a straight down the middle purple. There's no shimmer, no sheen that we're expecting, but it really does depend on paper, because I have found that in most cases this ink doesn't sheen, but I have had sheening on Hobonichi paper, so we'll see if it does it on this endless paper. And no skipping, far from it, and I think this is a perfect pairing color-wise. I do find it still juicy, but like I say, this could be a me thing rather than the pen, so let's use it a little bit longer and see if that sort of quietens down. Yeah, that was a me thing. You can see that we don't have over pooling in this section now. Now, as these are drying up, I'm not seeing the sheen coming out in this Taxidermist Genius. So what I'll do is I'll actually do very quick tests and show you the performance of all of these inks on different papers. I won't necessarily record because we don't want this video to be over long, but what I'll do is I'll give you the results of all of them on different paper. Next up, on this endless paper, we continue to swatch Little Bob, and I have got this particular Diamine Cult Pens exclusive ink in a Benu pen that I'll be showing you in a moment. So this is more a magenta leaning type of purple, and we're expecting it to have some greeny gold sheen. And again, I'm not seeing it immediately, so I think the testing it on other papers is going to be a must, but we'll see when this dries up. And like I say, I've paired this with a Benu pen, and here it is. This is the Daily Mate Creative Thursday, which has purple and these sort of like brown espresso colors running through it with gold flecks too. I've heard that Little Bob is a bit temperamental. Some batches lean redder or wetter than others. So like I say, we'll see how that goes. And let's have a look at the performance in this medium. Ooh, very juicy. Medium nib. Definitely a wet ink. I have a feeling this is going to have a long drying time. Clearly no skipping. The good thing is we've also got no feathering, because I think that would be my concern with something this juicy, but it's handling well. It's not feathering on the page. I think this is a good pairing. I wouldn't say it's a perfect pairing. I'd probably go for something slightly drier in terms of the ink with the medium nib. That or pair it with a finer nib. But otherwise, I think it's good. And we will let that all dry up. And like I say, I'll go off and do some more samples. Be back soon. I almost forgot. I'm back sooner than I said, because we're just doing this. We're testing out the performance of this little purple Papermate. But we're not testing out any particular ink. This is a standard cartridge, and it's really just to give you an idea of the performance. So one thing I would say is this is not a pen to use if you have big hands, because I'm okay. I've got fairly small hands, and yet I can use really tiny pens and bigger ones, and even I find that the balance isn't right for me. It's almost in the sort of like edge of my hands there unless I cap it. And yeah, it might be a struggle for people who've got bigger hands. But otherwise, this is a really good pen. It's a juicy writer with the standard ink because this is the Fine Nib. It's writing like the Fine Nib from the Jinhao, so perhaps that is more the standard internationally. I wouldn't say it's a Fine Nib. If you're looking at Japanese pens, I'd expect it to be more fine. But yeah, it's definitely reliable. So just to put this on the radar of anyone who's looking for a pen that they can throw into their bags, because it's under £1. And I'll go off and do those samples. And we're back with some surprising developments. The first one is the shading in here. That's not surprising. Jane Eyre looks just what I expected. I'm used to this ink. It looks more saturated on the Hobonichi paper. Then we have a taxidermied genius, and I said there was none of the green sheen coming out on this endless paper, which is Regalia 80 GSM. It is actually showing signs of the green, but not as much as on the Hobonichi paper. So there we get a real sense of that green coming through. But nowhere do you get the green sheen as much as this Diamine little bob. I mean, I'm so surprised. It looked nothing like that wet. But the writing looks mostly green now with just a little bit of the base purple. There we go. It took the longest to dry. In fact, this sample was still wet while all of the new samples on the Hobonichi had dried, and there's still some wet edges on both, but I'm just amazed at how much it sheens. Now the bluish violet from Jinhao just looked bluish violet on the Regalia paper, but it is sheening, and this is what I mentioned earlier, that sometimes standard ink will sheen on Hobonichi paper. So this is what the standard ink looks like on the Regalia, and this is what it looks like on the Hobonichi. So you definitely get some coppery green glint in there. And that's it. So these are the 4 pens that we tested out today. Let me know which your favorite is. And of course, I did the bonus disposable one in case people were interested in an expensive one they can throw into their bag. But really, it's these two retail for about $5 to $15 or pounds, depending on where you're buying. And this is 170 pounds, or was. It's now out of stock on Cult Pens, and I had it when it was reduced. And then this retails for 85 pounds. And again, you can get them a bit cheaper depending on discount codes and everything, but that's the Daily Mate. That's it. Let me know in the comments, which do you like, which pairings do you think are successful, and which paper would you prefer to use the inks on. Thanks so much for joining me, and take care.